Have you ever wondered what it would be like to be deaf or blind or even both? Close your eyes tight and put your fingers in your ears. Everything is dark and you can't hear. Can you imagine spending your whole life like that? Helen Keller did, but she learned how to overcome it. Helen Keller was born on June 27, 1880 in Tuscumbia, Alabama. When she was less than 2 years old, she got sick with something the doctors back then called brain fever. No one expected her to live, but she did. The only problem was that the disease had taken both her sight and her hearing. Helen's family did not know what to do with her. They did not know how to teach someone who could neither hear nor see. Other people said to send her away, but her mother and father loved her very much and wanted to try and help her. They took her all the way to Baltimore, Maryland, to be examined by a specialist, but he could not help her either. He sent the Kellers to see a man who was doing good work with the deaf. His name was Alexander Graham Bell, the inventor of the phonograph and the telephone. Mr. Bell told the Kellers how to find a teacher for Helen. Helen was very grateful for Mr. Bell's help. Here we see her as an adult standing beside Mr. Bell, spelling thank you into his hand. Here we see Miss Anne Sullivan with Helen Keller. In March of 1887, when Helen was almost 7 years old, Anne Sullivan arrived at her home to be her teacher. Anne started working with Helen right away, but Helen did not understand what her new teacher wanted. What Anne wanted was for Helen to use her hands to speak in sign language. This caused a lot of problems between the teacher and Helen's family. One day, when Helen was holding her hands under the gushing water pump, Anne spelled the word water into her hand. Helen finally made the connection between the finger movements in her hand and the things around her. Within just a few hours, Helen could spell 30 words. Once Helen understood how to talk to the world, she started learning very quickly. Anne taught her to read and write in Braille first, and then taught her to type on a regular typewriter. Braille is a special kind of writing which is made up of raised dot patterns. Each pattern is a letter of the alphabet. Soon people began to write articles about her, and she met many famous people. She even traveled to meet Alexander Graham Bell as she visited President Grover Cleveland in the White House. In 1897, Helen went to college. She was the first deaf and blind person to ever graduate from Radcliffe College. Helen wrote a book called The Story of My Life, and it has since become a classic. All this time, Helen stayed with her teacher, Anne Sullivan. They were to remain good friends for their whole lives. Even when Anne married, Helen continued to live with them. Anne helped Helen travel as she spoke to people all over the world. Anne Sullivan died in 1936. Helen's secretary, Polly Thompson, continued to travel and live with Helen. In 1957, a story of Helen's life, The Miracle Worker, was performed for the first time on TV. 2 years later, it was made into a Broadway play. Helen's health soon took a turn for the worse. She suffered the first of many strokes in 1961 and died in her sleep on June 1, 1968. Helen Keller helped change people's attitudes about the deaf and blind through her courage and determination. In her own words, she said, "The public must learn that the blind man is neither genius nor freak nor an idiot. He has a mind that can be educated, a hand which can be trained, ambitions which it's right for him to strive to realize, and it is the duty of the public to help him make the best of himself so that he can win light through work."